At the very start of the season, I asked you guys for some championship hot takes, and in today's video we're going to be reacting to some of the best ones. If you've not already seen, we've gone ahead and reacted to my championship predictions from the start of the season, and I thought I'd return the favour in this video, reacting to some of your best and worst shouts from the start of the season. As always, if you do go on to enjoy, make sure to leave a like. What was your most outlandish shout from the start of the season, which either came true or was miles off? Without any further ado, let's jump in. Ethan didn't have a good feeling about Norwich at the start of the campaign. He said Norwich to finish around 17th, not impressed with their business, and they finished 13th last year in a weaker league. In the end, that's not how things quite unfolded with the Canaries. There was a point of the season where David Wagner looked like he'd lost it, and a finish of around 17th looked quite plausible, but pulled things back around in the second half of the season, still with a shot of promotion as well, depending on how that second leg against Leeds goes. On the flip side of that, you had Charlie Rohan. He said David Wagner and Norwich will surprise everyone. Making it into the playoffs in the end, I'd say he was proving pretty spot on with that. WhiteartD was absolutely spot on with this call. He said Ipswich will finish higher than their rivals Norwich. Now, don't get me wrong, there was a lot of hype around Ipswich at the start of the season, but if you were to have told people at the start of the campaign that Norwich were guaranteed to finish in the top 6 and Ipswich still finish above them, that would have been quite a bold take at the time, but been proven spot on. It'll be Premier League football for Ipswich Town next season, and I'm still not over what a miraculous campaign this has actually been for Ipswich. Scott Coffins had a bit of a stinker with this shout. He said Birmingham a dark horse next season. Obviously Blues did a lot of business in the summer transfer window. Quite a bit of optimism around the club at the time, obviously, with new ownership. There was a generally quite good feeling around John Eustace as well, and a decent start to the season where they were sniffing around the top 6, but some bad decisions behind the scenes, a few missteps in recruitment as well, ultimately has led to a relegation campaign. Not the best prediction in the end. Now, Carl Risenhouse was with quite a lot of people at the start of the season saying that QPR are going down. I myself had QPR predicted to finish in the bottom 3 at the start of the season. I do think that was quite a plausible prediction to make at the time, especially with Gareth Ainsworth in charge. The vibes around the club were completely off at the start of the campaign, but what a turnaround it was by Marty Cifuentes in the end, and yeah, that fantastic second half to the season sets them up fairly well going into next season now, especially if they do keep hold of Cifuentes and they're able to add a few decent players here and there. This was a bit of an outlandish take, punching above our weight, said Watford will keep Valérien Ismaël for the whole season. To be honest, he ended up staying at Watford for probably longer than I originally thought he might have. He lasted until around March in the end, didn't he? Bad run of form towards the end of his tenure there was ultimately the final nail in his coffin. With Tom Cleverley now instilled as the boss going into next season, it will be very interesting to see if he's able to last longer than Ismaël in the job or not. Official Willie G said Coventry City automatics. Massive shout at the start of the season, didn't quite materialise that way in the end. Obviously, losing Gyökeres and Hamer was always going to be a bit of a hammer blow, but in the end I thought that Cov actually redistributed that money fairly well into their squad. It was just a bad run at the start of the season where I think they only won 3 of their opening 15 league matches, and then a poor run at the back end of the season as well ultimately cost them a place in the top 6, but certainly a club that I still think has good vibes going into next season, expecting them to be in and around the top 6 chase once again, especially if they do have a good summer transfer window, but automatic promotion, not quite this year. The less said about this one, the better. Ross Stewart will be the top scorer. The guy just cannot catch a break when it comes to injuries, can he? Southampton knew they were buying an injury-prone player when they spent all that money on him. He'd missed the majority of last season when he was at Sunderland through injury, hadn't he? Was it a Golden Boot winning campaign for the 27-year-old? Not quite in the end. When all was said and done, he only played 42 minutes of championship football and didn't score a single goal for Southampton. That might have been the worst prediction of the video so far. Glimpse HC was spot on with this shout though. He said Hull City will finish top 8. Got that bang on in the end. They did finish in 7th place. Hull were a bit of a tricky one to call at the start of the season. They obviously ended up doing quite a bit of business in the summer, but all of that was sort of towards the end of the window, and then a massive January as well, where they really pushed the boat out to try and get into the top 6. Didn't quite happen for them in the end, and obviously Liam Rosenior paid the ultimate price of them missing out by losing his job. LT predicted there to be no runaway leader and a 3-way last day decider for the automatics. Do you know what? We weren't a million miles away from having that actually unfolding in the Championship. There was a point where it looked like Leicester had absolutely steamrolled the competition, but after a bit of a dodgy run that they went on, they got brought back into it. Ended up winning the Championship before the last day of the season, but still had that final spot to play for between Ipswich and Leeds. That wasn't the worst shout in the world, I don't think. James Kent did have a bit of a stinker with this shout. He said Coventry to be relegated as his hot take. It was a bit of a dodgy start to the season for Mark Robins' men, maybe on the back of losing Gyökeres and Hamer. A few outsiders were doubtful of what they'd be this season, but yeah, no relegation troubles for them whatsoever, really. Tom Kirby got this shout absolutely spot on. He said Stoke to be in serious relegation trouble for a lot of the season, but just survive. And to be honest, that's pretty much how Stoke's season unfolded. Really miserable run towards the end of Alex Neil's tenure. Steven Schumacher then took over. Bit of a wobble in his opening few months as well, where Stoke were seriously dragged into that relegation battle, but a good run of form in the final few weeks of the season ultimately steered them away from any relegation phase. But as a hot take, that was pretty much spot on at the start of the season, wasn't it? Thomas Hall said all 6 teams that have just come into the division will stay in the division. Do you know what? Not quite right in the end, but not a million miles away. All 3 clubs that were promoted from League One, none of them ended up being relegated, albeit Ipswich were promoted to the Premier League. And the 3 clubs we had coming down from the Prem, obviously Leicester have gone straight back up, and we're yet to learn the fate of Leeds and Southampton, who are both in the playoffs right now. As hot takes go, it wasn't a million miles away. We'll finish with this one. Argyle will finish above Preston. Thankfully, that didn't happen in the end. There were 11 places separating Plymouth and Preston in the table. Preston comfortable mid-table in the end, finishing in 10th, and Plymouth just surviving on the final day with that win against Hull to finish in 21st. Who knows, next season could be a different story, but for this season at least, it was Preston who came out on top there. But guys, that will now wrap it up for today's video. There were just some of my favourite hot takes from the start of the season that I thought would be worth reacting to in today's video. As always, if you did go in to enjoy, make sure to leave a like and make sure to get involved in the conversation in the comments down below. But apart from that, thanks for watching guys, and I'll see you all in the next one.